So continuing on the way we were, we'll try and finish this Amud today. More Agadata and more stories with regards to the Megillah. Rabbi Chanina bar Papa Tachla Pitcha Laha Parshata Ma'acha. Rabbi Chanina bar Papa would begin his learning with regards to Megillah and Purim from this pasuk. Hirkavta enosh leroshenu banu be'esh v'mayim, which is a pasuk from Tehillim, which translates as, you rode a person on our heads. It sounds like someone's riding on a horse on top of our heads. You put someone on top of our heads. Banu be'esh v'mayim, and we came in fire and water. And Rabbi Chanina bar Papa learned from that. Be'esh b'mei Nebuchadnezzar Rasha. Be'esh is referring to when we were put through fire. Is when, during the time of Nebuchadnezzar Rasha, b'mei Nebuchadnezzar Rasha, who he threw people into fire who refused to worship idols. V'mayim b'mei Paro. And when did we go through water? During the time of Paro, when he threw the children into the water of the Nile. And at the end of the pasuk, which we didn't quote, but we're now learning it from it, and then we're taken out to quench our thirsts, Haman. That was during the days of Haman, who we then saved from the punishments of Haman and the suffering of Haman, and that's called Totzienu Leruvaya, we're taken out and quenched. Rabbi Yochanan began his learning also from a different pasuk, which is also from Tehillim. He remembered his benevolence and his faithfulness to the house of Israel, and the Afse'aris, the lowly ones of the land, the nations of the world, will see et Yeshuat Elokeinu. They will see the salvation of our God. And Rabbi Yochanan asked, when does this apply? When did all the nations of the world, living at the end of all the worlds, of settled lands, hear about Yeshuat Elokeinu? Bimei Mordechai v'Esther. Right, which is when, because of Achashverosh's huge empire, he was when this nace happened to the Jewish people, so many different nations heard about it because it all happened under Achashverosh's empire. Reish Lakish began his parasha, the learning of the Megillah, from here. From this place. From where? From Mishlei. Ari Nohem V'Tov Shokek Moshe Rasha Al Kol Dal. As it says, Rish Lakish Patach Lapitcha Laha Parshat Ma'acha Ari Nohem V'Tov Shokek Moshe Rasha Al Am Dal, which translates as like a roaring lion and a growling bear, so is a wicked ruler over a destitute people. And he learned from that, Ari Nohem, who is the lion which is roaring? Nebuchadnezzar Rasha. This is Nebuchadnezzar, the evil one. He is the roaring lion. As it says in Yirmiyahu, it says, so I want to get the best translation possible. So Yirmiyahu, Dalet Zayin, refers to the lion. The lion has left his den. The destroyer of nations is set out. So that's referring to Nebuchadnezzar. Dov Shokek, the growling bear, right? That is referring Dov Shokek Zeh Achashverosh. Tichtiv Pei Va'u Cheva Achari Tinyana Damia Ladov. So in Daniel we learn about Daniel had to deal with, as he was stuck in Babel and Persia, he had to deal with all these different terrible kings. and he was the one who was during the time when they were also thrown into the fire. So it says in Daniel, Zain Hey, it says like this. Then behold, another beast, a second one similar to a bear, was placed on one side, and there were 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And this is what they said to it: arise, devour much flesh. This is a vision which Daniel sees, the vision of 4 beasts, each referring to the 4 different exiles of Am Yisrael. That's how we understand it anyway. And this is referring to Achashverosh. Tani Rav Yosef, and Rav Yosef taught, Elu, what does it refer to, like an animal which is similar to a bear? Elu Parsim, these are the Persians. Shochlim v'shotim kadov, they eat and they drink as much as a bear. Musubalim basar kadov, and they are surrounded by meat, by flesh, by fats. Kadov, just like the dove. The dove is a fat animal with lots of fat on it to make it through the winter. I'm not sure if all bears hibernate, but they're all fat. Umagadlin, Sar, Kadov, and also the Persians would grow hair like a dove, meaning the hairy people. Bein nucha Kadov, and they don't have rest like a bear. Meaning, just like you've seen zoos, which don't have a lot of room for the enclosures, bears just walk back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and very restless. So too the Persians. And that's how we know that Achashverosh is called a dove, or the dove in Pasuk in Mishlei refers to him. Moshe Rasha is the Haman, who's the evil ruler, which was also in that Pasuk. That is referring to Haman. Zehaman, Amdal, who is the one who controls over a lowly nation. Who's the lowly nation? Elu Yisrael. Shimdalim mina mitzvot. That they are poor from mitzvot, and that's the reason that they were almost destroyed and Haman's decree happened, because we weren't doing many mitzvot. Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Elazar actually learned it from a different place. Also learned that when he began the parasha of Purim, learning about Purim and Megillah, he would start from somewhere else. It says in Kohelet, "Ba'atzatayim yimach ha'mekareh u'v'shiflut yadayim yitlof habayit." So as it says, we just read it, through slothfulness, laziness, the ceiling sags, and through idleness of the hands, the house leaks. You need to be on top of things. And he learned this with regards to the decree of Haman. Because of the laziness of Am Yisrael, that they didn't learn Torah enough, the hater of Am Yisrael, of Kodesh Baruch Hu, was sagged. Now, who's the hater of Kodesh Baruch Hu? We know that Haman hated the Kodesh Baruch Hu, but this is actually used Lashon Saginawar, the opposite way. It doesn't want to say Am Yisrael, so it uses the hater of Kodesh Baruch Hu instead, because it doesn't want to refer to Am Yisrael being sagged, by being lowered by God. So here it says, because of the laziness of Am Yisrael, that they didn't involve themselves in Torah learning enough, we were made into the haters of Kodesh Baruch Hu, and we were sagged because of that. Ve'emach ela ani. What does mach mean here? It means that we became destitute. Shneimar imachu me'akecha. If he becomes destitute and can't pay his loan back, which is a reference to something else. Ve'mekare ela Kodesh Baruch Hu. And who's the mekare? Who's the right? We said if through slothfulness the ceiling sags. What is right? Tikra in modern Hebrew means the ceiling. That's what mekare means as well. But what does mekare mean here? Mekare means here that Kodesh Baruch Hu, a reference to God. God is known as our ceiling. He covers us, and also because it says in Tehillim, the one who ceilings, creates a ceiling of water in the heavens, in the upper worlds. Okay. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Patach Lapitcha Laha Parshta Mahacha. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak learned it from a different place as well. The whole Indian of Purim from a different place. We say in Tehillim, Shi'amar Lulei Hashem Shaya Lanu Yomana Yisrael Lulei Hashem Shaya Lanu Bekum Aleinu Adam. Adam V'lo Melech. So we say in Tehillim, almost in the end of Tehillim, Kuf Kaf Daled, 124, we say like this. We say, one second. We're actually quoting here two psukim from the beginning of that parak. A song of ascents by David. Had not Hashem been with us, let Israel declare it now. Had not Hashem been with us when men rose up against us. Who is this? Who are these men? Wasn't Bekum Aleinu Adam V'lo Melech. So it says Bekum Aleinu Adam V'lo Melech. Where did the decree come from? Even though Achashverosh wasn't very big level of the Jews leader, the decree came from Haman. And Adam V'lo Melech, meaning already in Tehillim it's prophesizing or hinting towards a future event where there would be a man who wouldn't be a king who would try and destroy us. Rava learned the halachas of Purim and Megillah from a different place, or we started learning the Gadsa, the stories from a different place. As it says in Mishlei, Be'ovot tzadikim yismach ha'am, Moshe Rasha yanach ha'am. When there are many tzadikim in the world, the nation of Israel will be happy. Moshe Rasha, and when there's a Rasha in charge, yanech am, the am will sigh and heave. And he learned from that, Be'ovot tzadikim yismach ha'am. When there's many great righteous people, the nation will be happy. Who are the righteous people? That's hinting towards Zeh Mordechai v'Esther. That's referring to Mordechai and Esther. Va'ir Shushan Salav Samecha. K'dichtiv Va'ir Shushan Salav Samecha. As it says, towards the end of the Megillah, the city of Shushan was happy and joyous. What were they joyous about? They're joyous about the Tzadikim, Mordechai and Esther. That's how Rava is learning it. Moshe Rasha Yanach Am, and with the evil person being in control, the nation or the evil being in control, the nation will sigh. Who's the evil? Zaman. This is referring to Haman. Dichtiv Va'ir Shushan Navocha. Right? The city of Shushan was very saddened and was very perplexed. Meaning we know that when there's Roshaim around, then the nation, the world, especially the Jewish people, are brought to sadness. Rav Matna Amar Mahacha, Rav Matna learned, would begin his Purim and Megillah Shurim from here. Ki mi koi gadol asher lo Elohim kovim elav. Who is the great nation which is God is close to them? Right, so we know that Haman, one of his criticisms of the Jewish people was that they were scattered around and they've been distanced from God now, and that's what he would learn from it. Meaning, there's a hinting towards this is like a claim against Haman. Right, Haman says we've been abandoned. This pasuk in Devarim tells us that we're always close to God, no matter what. Rav Ashi Amar Mahacha. Rav Ashi learns it from a different place. Rav Ashi says, "O Hanisa Elohim," right? The whole pasuk is from Devarim, yeah. Perik Dalet, pasuk Lamed Dalet, right? So just go there quickly and give you the article translation. Dalet Lamed Dalet. Now, or has any God ever miraculously come to take for himself a nation from amidst a nation with challenges, with signs, and with wonders, and with war, and with a strong hand, and with an outstretched arm, and with greatly awesome deeds, such as everything that Hashem, your God, did for you in Egypt before your eyes? So from this we learn That's where we are. Now, what does it mean? Or Hanisa Elokim Mekerev, right? It says Mekerev from another nation, right? Which has happened to us. And here we learn that actually Mekerev, they learn here, Ravashi at least, this is how the Mepharshim explain it, is referring to God being close to us always. And Mekerev Goy, he's Mekarev Otam. He brings us closer. And therefore it's completely irrelevant to what Haman said when he said that we were distant from God and God didn't care about us anymore. That's just irrelevant. And therefore his claims were wrong. He took us unto another nation, so too he will also do the same, or did the same in the Purim story. So that's how Rav would learn it. Rav Hashem. So now we have Rav. So it's interesting here. We start a bit different. Okay. So Vayibim Achashverosh. It was in the days of Achashverosh. Amarav. Vai Vehi. Meaning, Vayhi here is coming not to say, and it was in the days, but it's a Miklikon. It was made of two words, Vai Vehi. Like a Y, like, oh my word. Vai Vehi. And it was in the days of Achashverosh, meaning hinting towards the suffering which is going to happen. Hada Dichtim, that's what's written. That's what we say in Devarim. And we say we will be sold there to our enemies, to slaves and to female slaves, as slaves and to female slaves. And that happened in the time of Haman. One second. I will be sold as slaves. The end of the pasuk is the most important. And there's no one to buy us. Meaning, we'll be exiled from Israel, and that's what happened. We will be sold as slaves in the market, and no one will want to buy us. And that happened in Haman's time, where he decreed that there would be no one to buy us as slaves, and therefore we would be as slaves with no owners, and therefore have no ability to eat. Shmuel Amar, Shmuel learned it from somewhere else. It says in Vayikra, in the Tochachot, Lo ma'astim, Shmuel Amar, Lo ma'astim v'lo galtim lechaotam. I will not find them disgusting to destroy them to such a degree. Lo ma'astim b'mei Yevanim. I will not find them disgusting during the days of the Greeks. I will not abandon them. Lo galtim b'mei Nebuchadnezzar. I will also not abandon them during the times of Nebuchadnezzar. And lechalotam, to destroy them. When will I not destroy them? B'mei Haman. And I will not get rid of my brit with them, which is the end of the pasuk. La'afer briti itam b'mei parasim. I will not get rid of my decree, my covenant with the Jewish people during the days of parasim. Ki ana Hashem Elohechem, because I am the Lord your God. B'mei Gog u'Magog. Meaning, I will make myself the Lord your God in the days of Gog u'Magog. Meaning, God never takes his benevolence away from the Jewish people. Magnita, Nebraita, Tana lo mastim. We learned this pasuk we just learned from Vayikra Bitimuli in the Braita. Lo mastim b'mei kastim. I didn't ban you during the days of the Kastim, which are the Babylonians. Shemati lehem Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, which I placed there to aid you, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, who were representatives of the Jewish people in Babel, and they were able to protect the Jewish people. And I didn't find it disgusting again, B'mei Yevanim, the days of the Greeks. Shemati lehem Shimon HaTzadik, that I placed for you Shimon HaTzadik, I placed for you Shimon HaTzadik, who was able to stop the conquering of Alexander Mukadon, right? Alexander the Great. Sorry, I'm mistaken. It's not Shimon HaTzadik was just able to stop the decrees of the Greeks. And the Chashmonaim, who battled years later, and Chashmonaim, right? Banav Umitityahu Kohen Gadol, who were able to fight physically against the Greeks. Lechalotam, and what about Lechalotam? He's not going to destroy us. That is Bimei Haman, who wants to destroy us. Shehemadi lehem Mordechai and Esther. For that battle, I placed in control Mordechai and Esther. La'afir briti itam, I will never get rid of the covenant. Bimei Parsim, during the days of the Persians. Shemadi lehem et Beit Rabbi v'chachmei dorot, that I placed there during the after the poem story and after the destruction of the temple, the Jews were still in Persia, and in Babel, I placed there the house of Rabbi, the Chachmei Dorot, and the wise rabbis of the generations. Because I'm the Lord your God, that is referring to future times. That forever there will never be a time where the other nations of the world can overcome the Jewish people. Rabbi Levi learned it from someone else. Imlo torishu et yoshvei haaretz. We learn that God said to Am Yisrael that they should kick out all the dwellers of the land of Israel, the Canaanim, in the time of Yoshua. And then it says, and if you don't do so, v'imlo torishu et yoshvei haaretz, if you don't kick them out, there will be a pain, there will be thorns to make us suffer in the future. And who were one of the classic Canaanite nations are the Amalekim. If we don't get rid of them, then they will come back to bite us. And that is where Haman comes in, because we didn't get rid of them. Shaul didn't get rid of them in the time of the war against Amalek. Here we have the whole idea now that that's coming back to bite us in the story of Purim. Rabbi Chia Amar Mahacha Vaya Kasher Dimiti Lasot Lehem Eseh Lechem. As it says in the pasuk that just after the one we just learned about, it says, and as I wanted to do, right? Vaya Kasher Dimiti Lasot Lehem Eseh Lechem. What I was planning on doing to the Canaanim, if you don't get rid of them, if you don't kick them out of the land, then I will do or destroy them. If you don't do that, then I will do to you what I intended to do to the Canaanim, which is destroy them. And which is what Haman wanted to do. He decreed against the Jewish people destruction, complete and utter destruction. And that was because we didn't keep our part of the bargain. Okay, we'll go a bit further. The Gemara now continues and does more midrashim and agads on the Megillah. Achashverosh. What does the name Achashverosh mean? Amarav Achiv Shel Rosh Uven Gilo Shel Rosh. He was the brother of the head and the same age of the guy who was the head. Gemara explains that Achiv Shel Rosh. He was the brother of the one that was stood ahead. Achiv Shel Nebuchadnezzar Harasha Shnikar Rosh. He was the brother of Nebuchadnezzar Harasha. That doesn't mean literally his brother, because he was a few generations after, and Nebuchadnezzar was Babylonian and Achashverosh was Persian. Rather, it means he was his brother to do evil things, meaning he was similar to him. Shneimar Antu Reisha Di Dahava. When Daniel understood Nebuchadnezzar's dream, it says, Antu Reisha Di Dahava. It's not really important the context right here, but he says, Antu Reisha Di Dahava, you are the head of gold. Meaning the head refers to Nebuchadnezzar, so when it says Achiv Shalosh, the brother of the head is Nebuchadnezzar. And when it says Ben Gilo, Sherosh, means he had the same age, it doesn't literally mean that. It means he had the same mazal, the same luck, the same star sign. Or that they had the same head, meaning same mindset to do things. Why? What do we know? Who Harag? Nebuchadnezzar killed Am Yisrael. Who Bikesh Larogan? Achashverosh also wanted to kill the Jewish people by agreeing to the decree of Haman. Who Echiv? Who Bikesh Lachiv? Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the Beit HaMikdash. And he, Achashverosh, also tried to destroy it. Now, in Achashverosh's time, the Beit HaMikdash only just then began to be rebuilt by Zerubbabel, and he wanted it, but with the permission of Koresh beforehand, and now he's trying to stop that from happening. So Achashverosh is actually stopping it from happening. Who Bikesh Lachiv Shneimar Uva Malchut. בתחילת מלכותו כתבו שנאה על יושבי יהודה וירושלים. At the beginning of the kingship of, or the reign of Achashverosh, people wrote sitna. Satan is the Satan, so sitna means accusatory things about the dwellers of Yehuda and Yerushalayim, the Jews who returned, meaning that they are trying to rebuild rebel against the Jews and against the Persians, and they did this to stop the Jews from being able to rebuild the Beit Mikdash, and Achashverosh went along with that. Shmuel Amar Hushchau Pnem Sheiseh Be'emav Kashurei K'dera. What does the name Achashverosh mean? It comes from Shachor, which is right that the faces of Am Yisrael became blackened, like the bottom of a pot which is on the fire. And what blackened them? The decrees against the Jewish people. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, that the name Achashverosh comes from something else. Shkol Rabbi Yochanan Amar. You say ach, like another ach kind of thing. Ach le'rosho. Oi to my head. Well, that's what Achashverosh means. Rabbi Chanin Amar shekol nasu rashin beyamav. Achashverosh actually is made up of the word ach, brother, and rash, a poor person. All the brothers became poor during his days. Shekol nasu rashin biyamav, because he increased the tax very much. As it says towards the end of Esther, Megillah Esther, and that he placed a heavy tax on those who lived in his empire. Now, what about the rest of the pasuk? Right, we know that pasuk. Why does it say in the days of Achashverosh, he is Achashverosh? Who Birusho mitchila ad sofo. He remained evil from day one to the end of his days. That's what it says. Meaning, that's why it says it. Meaning, he is the Achashverosh. He is evil from day one. And we know this from other places where this who Achashverosh, who something else, someone else, implies that law. We know who Esav. It says in Bereshit Lamed Vav Mem Gimel, who Esav. Who Birshom Mitchilato Vad Sofo. He was evil from the beginning, evil until the end. Who Datan Va'aviram. So too, it says he Datan Va'aviram. Shehen Berishan Mitchilatan Vad Sofan. They were evil from beginning to the end. Who Hamelech Achaz. He was the king Achaz. Shu Birshom Mitchilato Vad Sofo. He was evil from day one until his final days. We also find this with Sadiqim. Avram, who Avram? Avram, he is Avram, he is Avraham. What does that teach you? He was righteous from beginning to end. Who Aaron or Moshe? Also, he is Aaron, he is Moshe. Shem b'sitkan b'tchilatan v'ad sofan. They were righteous from day one until the end. David hu Akatan. And David, he was a small one, meaning, שהוא, David, הוא הקטן, הוא בקטנותו, בתחילתו עד סופו. He was small from day one until the end, meaning he was humble from day one until the end. שכשם שבקטנותו הקטין עצמו אצל מי שגדול ממנו בתורה. Just like he would humble himself before those who are greater than him in Torah, like Mephibosheth, son of Shaul. כך במלכותו הקטין עצמו אצל מי שגדול ממנו בחוכמה. So too, he would make himself smaller in comparison to those who are wiser than him. So first guy is wiser than him in Torah. This is like general wisdom. And that was Achitophel, who in the end rebelled against him. Okay. What about the continuation of the pasuk? Hu Achashverosh Hamolech Mehodo ad Kush. What does Hamolech, one who reigned? Amar Rav, what does it mean Hamolech? Not Shemalach, right? Shachasher Melech Malach Ma'atzmo. He crowned himself, kind of thing. Shemalach Ma'atzmo. He wasn't from the royal seat. Amrila Nishvach, Amrila Legnai. Some would say this is praiseworthy that he was able to grab the kingship, even though it wasn't from the seed of the kings. And some say it's a negative thing. This is a praiseworthy thing. Why? The one who says it's praiseworthy, why is it praiseworthy? Because there's no one more befitting of kingship than him, because he was able to get it. It wasn't like a genetic father, son. He became the king because he was the most befitting to do it. No, it wasn't because of his extra wisdom. It was actually the opposite. It was just because he was wealthy and he had a lot of money and he bought the kingship, and therefore it's not praiseworthy. And then we say Mahodu Vad Kush. He was king from Hodu until Kush. Hodu, there are the Hodu Kush mountains, so it might be referring to that, but normally we say it's Hodu, India. Kush is Ethiopia. We normally say it's from Hodu at Kush, India until Africa. So, but there's a machloket. Mahodu ad Kush, Rav u'Shmuel. There's a machloket between Rav and Shmuel. Chad amar Hodu b'sof ha'olam, or Kush b'sof ha'olam. Hodu is one end of the settled world, and Kush is on the other end of the settled world. And it means to say that he reigned on this huge empire. Chad amar Hodu v'Kush gabe hadade kaimu. They are actually next to each other, which would make sense, like it's called the Hodu Kush mountains. So one says, right, Chadamar Hodu Kush gabe hadade havu kaime. Shem she malach al Hodu v'Kush kach malach misof ha'olam ba'ad sofan. It's trying to say just like he had complete control over Hodu Kush, which right next to each other, so too he had a whole control over his whole empire until the whole world. Now it would make sense, it would make that reference because Hodu Kush is very far away from Persia. It maybe is the end of his empire, and as such it shows that look at his prowess, he has control of all these places, and it's an amazing thing. That's what it's trying to say. And also there's another machloket between Rav and Shmuel. Ki yotze b'davar ata omer, ki hu rodeh b'chol ever nahar mitifsach vad aza. And Shlomo was in control, it says in Melachim, and all ever nahar, all the other side of the river, mitifsach vad aza, from Tifsach ad until Aza. And Rav Shmuel have a disagreement there as well. Rav u'Shmuel, Chad amar mitifsach b'sof ha'olam v'Aza b'sof ha'olam. One of them says it's from one end to the other end. It's not because they're next to each other, it's rather it's trying to show that they are opposite extremes of Shlomo Melech's golden age of empire. And others explain that Tifsach and Asa are next to each other. And it comes to teach that he had what? כשם שמלך על תפסח ועל עזה, כך מלך על כל העולם כולו. Just like he was in control of Gaza, which is where Gaza is today, right? It was Plishti, so too he, and Tifsach as well, so too he had control on all the world. So, okay, then we go on, and the pasuk says he's in control of 120 ומאה מדינה. Sorry, 7 ומאה מדינה. Right, 127 kingdoms or states. Amar Christa, בתחילה מלך על 7, ולסוף מלך על 20, ולסוף מלך על 100. Right? Normally don't count this way. It says 7, 20, and 100, and 127. Normally you say 120 ו7. So why does it say 7, 20 ו100? Come to teach you the history of how he got his empire. First he started with 7, and then he went on to 20, and then he was able to capture 100. Ela ma'ata, Gemara challenges. Shnei Chai Amram 7 u30 و100 shana. My dash bait. Well, if you go according to that drasha of 7, 20, and 100, and if it's in the wrong order, then it comes to teach you this teaching that he started with 7, then with 20, and then with 100. How do you understand Amram? Amram, Moshe Rabbeinu's father, it also calls him that. It says that he was 7, 30, and 100, meaning he was 137. What do you learn about that? My drash be, Gemara asks. Shani Hacha. Gemara says it's different over here by Achashverosh, and that's the reason why we learn an extra drasha from it, an extra idea. The Krayaterahu, it's an additional pasuk. It's not needed. Or we think it was not needed. Why? If we know that his borders were Hodu ad Kush, I don't need 127. If I'm alive in that time, I can just count how many states between those two places. I don't know. Shema mina ledosha. Therefore, we learn because it's superfluous. It actually comes to teach a special law or a special drasha that was the way he captured his empire. Shkach, guys.